doing here? Well, I ran into Paige in Tulsa, and they said, would you like to debate? And I said, sure, let's go. And they said, no, not now. We do this debate every few months. And I said, sure. I said, what are we debating? What am I debating? They said, well, we have this topic, the economy versus creativity. I said, fantastic. I can't wait to take on that. I'm so excited. Of course, the economy is an evil, shitty thing, and creativity is all that we care about, the human spirit, human nature. And they said, no, we want you to be on the side of the economy. Sure, I'll come and talk about the poor, archetypal, starving artist theory that we know as being sort of obsolete and out of the present mind. And I started thinking I'm going to be speaking about this to a crowd that is made up of artists and intellectuals, much as yourselves, and I would sound much like defending pedophilia to PTA. Or as Bill Maher would say, the Catholic Church. So I decided to break it down into a few basic things of what is the economy. Well, the economy is really money, and money is really power. And power can be used in a lot of different ways. So then I thought about in the art world, what could this money be used for? And I thought, well, in the good sense, money could be used to buy art, to support artists, to convince the artists to show in galleries, to have the galleries have the art show in other galleries around the world, to have the art go to museums, to have the museums show the art and enrich our culture, and to buy ads in art magazines also. I really thought that that was the good side, and then I started thinking, well, what is the other side? What is the bad side of money and art? And the bad side, there is no bad side. I'm sorry. I started thinking, what was the bad side? There is no bad side. We take money, artists use money, artists get to eat, artists get to buy canvas, they get to buy computers, they get to buy whatever they need, and there really is no downside to the economy and the condition of art. Shana, take it away.
It's one of those things where I personally obviously care about art. I work in the art world. When everything sort of falls to shit, I still get to write about that, right? So I have a little bit of like a war correspondent thing happening, with that, where I'm a little itty bitty tiny bit more insulated from the direct impact of a crashed economy because people still want to read about what's happening. But I don't A, enjoy that kind of work, and B, media outlets are closing constantly. I don't have to tell you that. And although I would never wish failure or hardship or struggle on anyone, I cannot help but sort of notice that throughout history, times of struggle, times of tumult, times of political, oppression, and other kinds of discomfiture have sort of produced some of the best, most, compelling, enduring work. Without Margaret Thatcher, there'd be no Sex Pistols. Whatever you can. Without Ronald Reagan, maybe there'd be no Keith Haring. Whatever it is. And so it's as a human, I don't want that. But as an art critic, I'm kind of psyched that maybe I don't have to wade through 400 museum shows for people that don't even have their MFAs yet. Thank you. Because everyone's like chasing the new big thing because the donors want the big things, and because the money coming from corporate sponsors is not coming out of their community activism budget, it's coming out of their marketing budget. Get real. They want their names on the walls where the kids come, that they are, are their demographic, and so they skew younger. And in the middle of all of this, it's like this crazy Satyricon mall thing happening, and it just becomes increasingly difficult to get the sort of background noise out and have a look at what's really actually going on with contemporary art, not to mention the fact that that process kind of creates a donut hole in the middle where if you're not super young and sexy or already pretty well established, you kind of don't exist. Like the mid-career working artist, is kind of left out in the cold in an economic model that chases other kinds of priorities. So I sort of feel like that's a bad influence on the art world that money's presence could have.
Yeah. Shana, you ignorant slut.
Well, Robert, you pompous ass.
You know, the argument that you're making is that, and I think this is it, is that at tough times, better art is being made. And I must say that I think that is a subjective call. I think the only one who can really judge whether art is good or bad at any given time will be history, and even then, it's subjective call. So we really can't tell what's happening and what's influencing art. You could say that in times of prosperity, like in the 60s, in the pop period in New York, some amazing art came out of a time when we had incredible money in New York, incredible money in the world. We didn't have the pressures that we have now, and great art was coming. But of course, that's a subjective call. My point is simply this, is that in good times or bad times, it's really better for the artist to have money.
Yeah, what I think is interesting is that money and money's effect in the art world. I mean, you could go back and you can make an argument, you know, for the patronage system, obviously going all the way back, you know, as far as you possibly can in history. But I just think that when there's a lot of money, you get a kind of a Goodfellas kind of effect happening, where people think that because they have money, it just seems to me like it's not like I want everybody to be broke. I would love to have a ton of money, and if I had that, I would spend it on art. Like, I get it. It's not. However, we're not debating whether artists should be allowed to eat. We're debating whether, you know, whether a culture without a little bit of an authority kind of edge to it makes. I mean, I don't know. France. I can't think of a great French artist right now. And my feeling is that is, for the most part, because new generations are not killing it out there, and I think that's because they don't have any kind of sort of fire. I mean, they're being funded, and I'm a socialist. I don't want them I don't want their money taken away. It's just that it seems to me like there's a little bit of a market. Market in terms of the public, right? Like people voting with their dollars that they like it in terms of buying it or not. And I think that when money is scarce, people make those choices perhaps less often, but also more considerately. And I just think it quiets the whole thing down, like a market correction, which is a euphemism for a lot of people being really screwed over. But it's still a correction. Like, I think what has happened in the last couple of years with like every person with a sketch pad and like a weird little bunny rabbit in a spacesuit is like the next big thing. It's like, what the fuck is that? So that's,
You used the French card on me, didn't you? I see your point about France, but that's a much longer conversation. The argument that is right now in front of us is whether or not you need to be starving and hungry and desperate to have creativity and make good art, and if that really is part of the cycle, the romantic starving artist cycle. I even going back historically into Greek and Roman and Italian times, you see that there were benefactors in the church, and all these people supported the artists, and that's when creativity was blossoming. And I'm not saying that you need that. I'm just saying it's a negative, it's a level playing field, whether you have money or not. I'm just saying at this time when you're involved in all these multimedia art things happening, it's probably better to have a little bit of money.
It's always better to have a little bit of money, but also at the same time you have to understand those patrons were doing things like putting themselves, like making John the Baptist have their face. And you know what I mean? Like, in other words, there was a level of sort of censorship or at least undue influence that was always attached to the money that was being spent. They never said just go do what you want. There was always an agenda that they were expected to follow. I mean, it's not a pure thing. I'm looking forward to the circus leaving town. You know what I mean? I was pointing out I don't have any money either.
Let's start out with Shana.